Well, first of all, the United States government has followed through on its promise to introduce these tariffs globally, and to the extent that Barbados and Barbadian products that are exported into the United States will now face a 10% um, duty. And therefore, that means that many Barbadians and those in the diaspora who consume ordinary products from Morby to Tiger Malts to pepper sauce, you name it, will now see at the border the application of a 10% increase. That would ordinarily mean that consumers in the United States, Bajan consumers and those in the diaspora, will be paying more for Barbadian products. And therefore, in addition to everything else that I see in the list here, it means that everybody in the United States will be paying more for every product that's imported into the United States.
So I know you mentioned Mobby and some of the very popular Barbadian products, but can you anticipate what are some of these products specifically that will be impacted by this development, and even services? We know in the area of the arts, we have many artists who travel outside of Barbados.
Well, to the extent that the quantum of those exports to the United States, and of course that varies depending on the season and all of that, the reality is that everything will be impacted from in terms of goods associated with these with the tariff increase. Now, what that means for the producers is that on the one hand, you got a couple of options. You either find the most efficient way to produce your products to be able to contain your costs further, which could mitigate the increase in tariff, or you can take the bold steps and move as a cooperative to be able to invest directly into the United States to be able to get access to the market in order to avoid paying the tariff. And therefore, the options are available now. And I would suggest to persons that we have to utilize the full global supply chain in relation to responding to issues like this. But equally, we must ensure that we also look at other markets. So once we focus on efficiency, we also have to look at other markets in order to get into the space. The government has already invested significantly in the food science center here at Newton. And therefore, I would urge Barbadians, especially those involved in food sciences, to be able to avail themselves of the facilities at Newton, not just from the perspective of uh, reduction in relation to investing the capital, but being able to have the most efficient process, which is also meeting the standards with respect to sanitary and phytosanitary standards available for export.
So, Minister, how do you anticipate the tariffs will affect or have an impact on trade relationships, not only here in Barbados, but across CARICOM?
Well, first and foremost, I'm glad you raised that question because the United States is outside of CARICOM. And just for the benefit of viewers, there's something called the Common External Tariff. So goods that are produced within CARICOM are traded within CARICOM with very specific, mostly duty free amongst member states. And we have put these tariffs in place as a measure of helping to protect domestic and regional businesses as we try to ensure that issues related to food security, as well as jobs and basic manufacturing processes can be sustained in the region. And therefore, to the extent that CARICOM as a body, as a group, in relation to these matters, we have the common external tariff in place, of which the United States will be one of those countries that would the rate would apply, one of several countries outside of CARICOM. And therefore, I think from a regional perspective, we all will have now to ensure that, again, we focus on how do we get support, further support our producers in being able to access the full global supply chain and to be able to start to do more trade with each other. Now, within that context, and I say to Barbadians, the government of Barbados and CARICOM, we have engaged actively with the African Exim Bank to be able to do more trade with Africa. And therefore, to the extent that we can enhance our production capacity, then it means that with the impact of these products coming into the United States, it means then that there's an opportunity for us to be able to ensure that we work collaboratively together to enhance trade, not just within CARICOM itself, but as we do more trade with Africa and certainly with respect to Latin America, I think there's some significant opportunities that we cannot miss, and therefore we have to work together and do so aggressively for the domestic producers, the regional producers, and to be able to grow our economies, I think, more sustainably in the future.
So, Minister, just to be clear, for those businesses here in Barbados that do exports, what would do you anticipate would be the real challenges that they might see or changes that they or consumers might see in the short to medium term?
Well, considering that the tariffs affect everything that is imported into the United States, then the extent to which the cost of living in the United States will increase is perhaps where the biggest anxiety will come, because to the extent that persons who are wholesalers importing these products, looking at the impact of inflation directly on consumers in the United States, will then start to make decisions in relation to what they import, how much they import, and that is something that, with respect to the relationship with your wholesalers, but certainly with respect to the market, that is, I hope that businesses would have good intelligence in relation to those persons in the diaspora who support these brands, and that those, as we are doing, we gather in this year to be able to reconnect those who live abroad with Bajans, that we understand and appreciate that the patriotism that is exhibited by Bajans living abroad in the United States, all across the United States, and continuing to support local brands is important at this time, because it means jobs for Bajans here at home, but it equally means that to the extent that we can allow for those persons to do more investment into Barbadian production, we would want to encourage. But I think companies now have to be in direct conversation with the distributors in the United States, as well as those consumers, if they have that intelligence, to be able to ensure that they can continue to supply the market, whilst at the same time focusing on how do they more efficiently produce those products in order to further contain costs. Not just costs for them, but costs for domestic consumers here in Barbados as well.
So much for your time this evening, Minister, to clarify for all Barbadians. We thank you.
Thank you very much.